causal AI is deterministic and won't hallucinate. But all the fears come from hallucinations of AI. And so suddenly we are faced off getting questions. Oh, is now causal AI as dangerous as generative AI? No, it's not.
We have had several cybersecurity experts on recently, but none more prominent than our current guest, who has an amazing story to tell. Alongside the original co-founders, one of whom happened to be his wife, Bernd Greifeneder developed a groundbreaking product based on observability of applications and infrastructure, allowing organizations to trace security threats in real time. This innovation and the quality by which it was delivered launched Dynatrace as a significant player in the unified observability and security space. We discuss pitching for investment in the early days and why the original investors really believed in this product and helped push it forward. We also delve into how Bernd and the team retained the culture of the organization from the entrepreneurial stage through to the other stages of scale over the last 15 years. We also explore why they chose to set up in the US. We examine their hypermodal AI platform and also why Bernd thinks it's crucial for organizations to consider hiring a chief AI officer in the coming years. This was an incredible conversation. I never tire of speaking to entrepreneurs and business leaders who are this passionate about their field of expertise, and Bernd certainly ticks that box. You'll enjoy this one. It's Bernd Greifeneder. Bernd, lovely to see you, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Really excited to talk to you. There's lots and lots of things to discuss today. But let's start off with a question we always start with. What does good leadership mean to you, Bernd?
To me, when I get this question, I start off with one word, and this is the word of proactive. And This is always the biggest one. Also, this is how I differentiate managers from leaders. This is not by the number of people you have, but it is how much do you actually see challenges and be proactive about tackling them in innovative ways and driving change and driving forward versus just keeping the status quo working.
Wow, that's a very progressive answer. I think, do you find that many business leaders do tend to blur the lines between management and leadership? Yeah. What do you think is the biggest difference, and what separates those two things?
Yeah, this has come through in all those discussions around, do we have here very technical leaders who have so much value for the company where we actually do not want them to have many direct reports. But yet at the same time, if you build a product and your entire company is based on a product, then you need those leaders even as individuals. So giving the individual leaders also a proper titling and career that matches up to the common thinking of, managers, the more people you have, the more career you make. This sort of was also a big discussion in our growth area to make it clear that every individual leader has the same career chance and the same compensation chance and opportunity as a manager, because at the end of the day, I could almost argue that the leaders, even regardless of individual leader or sort of broader leader with reports, are more important than just the managers. But eventually we need both of them.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. That's you hit the nail on the head there, Bernd. I completely agree. So for the listeners who are not familiar with yourself, they probably would have heard of Dynatrace, but if they're not familiar with yourself, could you give us a little bit of an introduction on maybe how you got into the technology space and then subsequently the years leading up to setting up Dynatrace in 2011, I believe? Yeah.
So today I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Dynatrace, and the story I got into this actually started much earlier in the .com boom time, where I was Chief Architect for a load testing software. And I had back at that time a customer throwing me the manual in front of my feet and saying, I want this red line, go away. Obviously, very inconvenient moment for me. because the customer stated, we have a great product that does do load testing, but still they could not go live with their e-commerce system because the e-commerce system would fail already with 50 users trying to go online. So, but sort of we told them that information, super valuable, but could not help them to figure out in the insights what was the root cause of that issue. And this eventually then drove me to test different other products out there and think about how can I analyze the insight of software, and tried out profilers that gave you probability trees. But as an architect, I could not make any sense out of this. How can I then fix something?
Yeah.
So this led then to the idea, what if you would start with an end user's click, for instance, on an online shop, or think of a banking app, how that one click goes actually through the system from one software hub to the next software piece to the next software, all the way to the databases, and to understand this as a trace. And eventually, this idea of tracing through applications was the foundation for our company. This is why we are called Dynatrace, for dynamic tracing of such user interactions all the way in complicated and complex software systems.
So talk us through those years in terms of setting up the company. Obviously, we can see what problem you were trying to solve and how you went with that name. How did it all come about, though? How did you meet your co-founders, and what were the early years of Dynatrace like?
Yeah, so the pain of looking into software and kind of helping this started with this load testing, but it was also very interesting that at that point in time, I created for this company another product that was more in the area of real user experience, but they could not sell it properly, or they sold it to the wrong audience. Let's put it this way. They sold a production product to their testing audience, totally disjoint. And this made me then think, okay, I don't want to invent any product mere for this former company. If they don't know how to sell it, this is waste of my time and energy. And this was for me the trigger as an actually very loyal employee to say, no, I can't do this anymore. I have to do something on my own. And then it was the moment about, okay, I need to start a company. How do I go about this? At least with this background of having been the chief software architect for a NASDAQ-based company with this load testing offering before, I knew I need to build something that's global and not just a local. And I also had the sense, okay, the software that being built is for enterprises, and that costs more in the scale of a car than just a donut, sort of in comparison.
Yeah.
So this required then, how do we start there? I'm a technician, so I need someone actually who does then also sales and who does marketing. And so my wife then did jump in. She was herself in the e-commerce business, ramping up a business for office supplies, selling B2B. So she knew all those pains that e-commerce shops and their managers had. So eventually she joined them instead, sort of taking the double risk. She was actually even at the seed financing committee, pregnant. So the investor committee said, what? How crazy are you actually? You're a couple
all that stress.
and pregnant, so this can't work. So, but this was a key moment. And I was sort of naive enough at the beginning to think, this 1 million should be good enough sort of to get going. Obviously, after
didn't last
3 quarters, the million is gone.
Yeah.
So we needed some additional founder helping with finance, and we got then the third one on board who helped then finding venture capital. Yeah, so it helped a lot sort of that we had those clear role deviations of technical, marketing and sales and finance. And then in 2007, it was clear we needed venture capital money, and eventually then get then the first 5 million on board. And then also with the venture capital money, there comes the request, but you need also a CEO. Especially we took venture capital money in the US. And this is maybe also a lesson learned, and one that I say worked out well. Initially, we wanted VC money local.
Yeah.
We got actually then those partners would not really understand the market we want to sell to.
Sure. Yeah.
Then they always thought this is super high risk what we do. And we had at the end 5 offers on the table. I mean, a couple of in Europe, but then 2 in the US. And at the end, we picked the one in the US, not for the money, but for the best understanding and belief in the market.
Yeah.
Were proved out as the right decision to go for the one who believed in it. Because when then later sort of the economic crisis came, we heard of many other startups where then investors bailed out because of risk and they did not understand the market versus other investor completely doubled down on this and helped us even selling and pitched better than our own salespeople.
This episode was brought to you by Be Digital. Be Digital support leadership teams to optimize cost and get more out of technology investments. Be Digital and the team have unrivaled expertise with technology license management and data remediation and are therefore perfectly positioned to help prepare organizations for AI technology capability. And on the last point, Be Digital have just developed a cutting-edge AI readiness assessment, which provides tech leaders with a platform they need to make well-informed decisions about AI adoption strategy in 2024 and beyond. Go to bedigitaluk.com to find out more and get in touch. So what did you do to get that buy-in from the investor you ultimately ended up engaging with? Well, why did they believe in you? How did you sell it to them?
So the investor that we had there and the partner there was the CFO of a monitoring company that itself did an exit of over 500 million.
Wow.
And this CFO knew from their customers that tracing through a system was to them the holy grail that no one could do. So when he heard the story of Dynatrace, and he keeps repeating the stories, on the first phone call we had, he said to me, "Hey, Bernd, if this is true, I'm flying on Monday to Linz, to Austria, and just tell me that this is not a lie, because I mean, this really, so I will come." And then eventually he came, and this was like an immediate understanding from what is the pain and what is it that we can provide.
So they immediately understood the value of the product and the product market fit. And, you know, obviously, so that,
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, getting that excitement from one of your investors is so important, isn't it? I think because if they're excited about it, then they'll help push the company forward. They'll be like a salesperson for you, won't they? So, and they're obviously with a very good contact book, I'm sure. So, no, that's incredible. So, I mean, talk us about scaling then. Obviously, you've been on a journey since that investment right through to today. What milestones stand out for you as being really important moments for the evolution of Dynatrace?
Yeah, clearly it was in 2007 hard for me to hand off the CEO role to bring in a new CEO, but I knew I can't do everything. And this is sort of definitely something that is an important habit and realization that as you grow, you have to keep handing off responsibilities to other people. And so hiring the CEO was super important. Also, the CEO was in the US, so this was a great partnership, me in Europe, in the US, so that we could help sort of work across the pond. And then we moved on, built the team, and the big one was actually to get with a funding of less than 20 million in total positive, which is these days actually not as common. Usually startups burn much more money till they get positive. And we had then about the run rate of 24 million and got then acquired by another US software vendor, became then part of a bigger ecosystem. And this was sort of then very corporate. Interestingly, they had some other 2 products to converge. So I was chartered, "Hey, Bernd, I mean, there are 2 more products in this field, bring them together." And I figured, no, this is duct taping. I can't create the product or a suite of products that does not have a great experience. So I had to convince the management to do a greenfield approach. And this means to actually create a dedicated new brand and a startup within the organization, and created a completely new product, sold it to a dedicated target audience. It was all SaaS-based. It was more SMB initially. It was all about innovation. Then I got into the moment of we spent 20 million in R&D, sort of had a great budget, but we did 1 million in revenue. And then the investor came, yeah, okay, but does not work. Sort of, you're wasting too much money. So the product that is too expensive for this. But eventually we could, with help of comparisons, I bring up the Kodak story. Kodak invented sort of the digital camera, but that then suffered from their fear of cannibalizing their film industry themselves. So with this, I could convince management, no, we actually need to continue on this, drive this forward. And then the investors eventually then helped move this into then the world of B2B and enterprises. We converged it with the rest of the business. And then suddenly the hockey stick came in, and this drove then the further growth of Dynatrace. Also, the investors then in 2016, I think, carved out Dynatrace entirely. And we became then a standalone company. Again, the whole startup mentality, entrepreneurship kicked in again, and we could boost it further, leading up to 2019 when we eventually had them
went public then, yeah?
Go public, which was a key moment.
Yeah, I can imagine. Let's come back to that moment when you went public then. But I'm really keen to hear, Bernd, you were obviously leading the product element of Dynatrace. What was the biggest engineering and product challenge that you ever faced?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is actually not technology itself. The biggest challenge is scaling the teams and making sure that the best people, the smartest people work together and can innovate properly. And over the course of the years, I learned that with every doubling in size of the team, I have to completely reinvent how we work together. And this is ongoing, and this keeps going despite we are far away 1,000 people in R&D.
Wow, okay. So how did you retain that culture that you built in the initial team then? Do you know what I mean? Because I know you needed to reinvent things, but you obviously needed to keep the DNA of what initially was the reason for setting up the company, the raison d'etre, as they call it. How did you retain your culture through the various levels of scale that you achieved between 2008, 7, 8, right up to 2019?
Yeah, that's a true challenge too, because still a size in the R&D team of 300 people-ish, all culture is implicit. Sort of you work together and everyone knows and you just live it. But then when we grew further and with more people onboarding, suddenly you realize new people don't know what the culture is anymore. And so this was then the moment when we had to switch and make it explicit and initiated from onboarding programs to other programs to make sure we tie them into the organization, set up values, and figure out how we help them to live them.
Yeah, sure. So tell us about going public, Bernd. It's obviously something you put a lot of thought into yourself and the co-founders. I'm assuming it's something you prepared for a long time. Was it what you expected? Are you glad you did it? And what's your thoughts on the whole thing now, looking back?
Having been part of venture capital money, usually what you think is, or what this means is you will do an exit to another company.
Yeah.
And this is where actually going public was a fantastic opportunity to not just being sold yet to another bigger company and being part of this, but continue the Dynatrace vision and Dynatrace story forward. So I think this was a fantastic shift because for the investor, this was the second IPO they did. Before this investor had done always sales to other companies. So I'm very, very blessed and grateful on that we could make that move for public.
Let's maybe shift gears a little bit then and talk about the sort of current product set, okay, and the current stuff. So can you explain how Dynatrace's hypermodal AI platform boosts productivity across development, security, etc. How can you just like give us for the listeners who are not too familiar, can you give us like a bit of an overview?
So basically, we at Dynatrace, we enable customers to make their software work more flawless and secure. So what this means is think of the majority of Fortune 500 companies in the world, for instance, use Dynatrace, whether it's a banking app, e-commerce app, logistics app, sort of it's in that world of software. I think also complexity. Our customers have hundreds of thousands of servers out there. Sort of people don't know how those are interconnected anymore. This is too dynamic and too complex. So this is exactly where then this goes beyond humans' abilities to actually understand that complexity for both the reliability of software, but as well as for security of software. And this is where Dynatrace's hypermodal AI comes in, because first, we bring all the data together into one place, keep it and enrich it with context, and then apply a causal AI to it that we then complement with generative AI as well as predictive AI. And and I can explain a little bit sort of what this means.
It'd be good to break down what those three types of AI are for the listeners. That would be really good, just in a very, sort of a high level way. That would be brilliant if you could do that, Bernd.
Yeah, so because what everyone now has in mind is generative AI, which is the large language model, which is sort of the ChatGPT kind of approach. And when I ask you sort of, what do you want to ride in a car that is driven by ChatGPT? I guess you would answer, no, there's too much.
I'd be a bit nervous.
Drives you in the river because, it's hallucinating. You never know what's the outcome. And it's part of actually its strength, but also its weakness is that it's based on probabilistic data. So you never know exactly what the outcome will be, despite very often it's really good, but you never know. So it means this is not really good for an automation. This is also why we demand this needs human oversight, this generative AI approaches and so forth. What does it mean in the world of software? Sort of when you run your banking software, then you also can't run it the way like the car that drives potentially into the river. So you need some different approach that is more deterministic, that is more precise. And this is exactly where then the causal AI is very complementary to the generative AI.
Sure.
Because the causal AI is based on dependency graphs in real time derived from the customer's IT system. Sort of think of all the interconnections of hundreds, thousands of servers. Those are captured and modeled in real time. And based on this information, the causal AI understands the causal dependency of an issue to an end user experience or to a security risk. And with this causal understanding, you can provide precise root cause or a precise attack vector information. Right. So now what we do is we combine that causal AI with generative to provide an easier way for humans then to interact with this. So you can, for instance, ask, so what was the key reason why last week I had a business drop of 10% in there? And then this generative AI part of Dynatrace Davis Copilot would first use generative AI to understand my intent with the question, and then ask the causal AI for the details that it knows about the IT system, and prepare the answer, provide it back to the generative AI, and the generative AI would then translate this in a human understandable answer. Hey, the root cause was actually because there's in this container over there in this cluster, there was this issue and so forth. And this is how you could go forward and remediate.
Sure. So autonomous driving systems, for example, would fall under the category of causal AI, I assume then, Bernd, from what you've explained?
Yes, those are also a mixture of different systems. Yes, they have to be very deterministic systems in order to do autonomous driving.
Yeah.
The side of image recognition is then more probabilistic, but this is also why for autonomous car, you have to bring multiple sensors together, more than just cameras.
Yeah, that's why it's so difficult to do, I suppose. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
So I understand you obviously, I'm sure you're familiar. There's been an emergence of a chief AI officer role in the boardroom over the last couple of years. What's your thoughts on having someone? Is AI that significant that we need to have chief AI officers in boardrooms of corporate organizations? Why is it important for companies to invest in something like that?
Yeah, right now we have charted our chief technology strategist in this role, caring about AI. And I think the biggest one is to help with all the misconceptions and misunderstandings that's there. For instance, causal AI is deterministic and won't hallucinate. But all the fears come from hallucinations of AI. And so suddenly we are faced off getting questions. Oh, is now causal AI as dangerous as generative AI? No, it's not. But this is then to your question of the boardroom. This is what needs to be structured, clarified, bubbled up. And also there needs this help of how to deal with, then on one hand, innovation, modernization, but on the other hand, also managing the risk. So understanding where there isn't a risk versus where they are and how to deal with those.
Yeah, sure, for sure. So what excites you most about the future of AI within the context of Dynatrace then, Bernd? What are you working on right now, which is going to really push your product forward?
Yeah, this is the combination of exabytes of data and the combination then also of the different types of AI. I believe that generative AI alone is a great tool, but is not providing the value that actually everyone is looking for. We are at this area of hype cycle. So the combination with multiple AIs is absolutely key to have more the creative part of generative, but also then the precision part of other types of AI all combined together. And then folded this together with exabytes of data from the systems brings powerful automation and helps customers to protect their software and make it more reliable.
Yeah, sure. So exabytes, I think, is a ridiculously large amount of data. 1 exabyte is what, 1,000 or 100,000 terabytes?
Petabytes, yeah. 1,000 petabytes.
Yeah, the amount of data that's being created is just mind-boggling these days, isn't it? But yeah, so no, that's really useful. So let's talk about cyber and the cybersecurity landscape a little bit then, Bernd. Obviously, there's the emergence of AI, quantum computing seems to be becoming more and more realistic. What are you sort of most concerned about in terms of cybersecurity threats over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think one is that you can't protect the system anymore in some form of shielding through firewalls or some form. You have to always think that the intruder is already in your environment. You have to go and protect each and every individual piece of software that you have, whether this runs on premises, whether this runs in a cloud service somewhere. You have to protect all those pieces individually. And also live with this that not only hackers will be used down the road, or hackers themselves will use AI more and more to be faster with attempting all the exploits.
Yeah.
And also creating and finding new exploits. So this means thinking more about how can you prevent yourselves to withstand zero-day attacks, meaning because you don't have any time anymore, this goes all so quickly, is an important one. And this is where I believe that you, almost like with humans, when you do a vaccination, it needs to be similar with software. You need to immunize software also from the inside.
Yeah,
because this provides then a shield for each and every little software component on its own, plus then coupled with the analytics of risk and attack vectors around it, this will emerge. A very other important area is then when we think about how software is being created down the road. I mean, it's complex already today. I mean, too complex, I would argue.
Yeah.
Then people will now use more and more generative AI to create software. So alone in the last year, even in those early days, The first statistics say that code redundancy has increased by 30% already, and we are just at the very beginnings. What this means is code becomes harder and harder to maintain.
Yeah.
So as we generate more and more code that is unmaintainable or harder to maintain, it means also it is more prone to attacks because all the generative AI does not yet care about whether this is an old pattern or new pattern. It is much harder to actually then secure and protect, for instance, the generated code with more generations. So, and what's happening, what humans do always so far, we throw more technology on technology. So you can expect that we throw more AI on helping with also securing and protecting. And this is then almost a recursion. And this is very interesting where this goes. But I
sure.
also strongly believe with this growing complexity, we will be able to provide help.
I was listening to the All In podcast, with Chamath Palihapitiya and a couple of his mates in Silicon Valley talking about how the SaaS business model sort of emerged after the creation of the internet. But they think that it will be, with the emergence of AI, generative AI creating software, it will massively disrupt the SaaS business model because it'll just, for obvious reasons that you partly just explained. Do you agree with that? Do you think generative AI will create software to the point that SaaS companies will really struggle to capture more market share? Do you know what I mean? Because companies will be creating their own software to do things. So why would they need to pay license fees for software?
No, because you always need to create software that is superior over the average.
Yeah. So you think the bar will just raise? They'll just get better and better then?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just raise the bar. This has always been this way. If some technology becomes more widely adoptable, then everyone uses it. But then there's always someone who does it better.
Absolutely.
And those are the ones who win at the end. And this is clearly where generative AI becomes just a tool like back then a calculator was in the times of when you had to do manual mathematics.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a good example. So look, I think I wanted to ask you about sort of AI, the emergence of generative AI and causal AI especially over the last 12 to 18 months, where it's just has become a very mainstream conversation now. But what, outside of the cybersecurity space, what real world impact of AI are you maybe most excited about, and also most fearful of? You know what I mean? What do you think? What do you think AI is going to change on a societal level? And what are you fearful of?
The positive is definitely that the human to machine interaction will become easier and way more seamless. If you just look at how often I have really issues communicating with my Alexa device and just get it to do my tea timer at best. And then look at what you can get from ChatGPT, you really notice that this is a big jump up in how you can communicate.
Sure.
So that's in my opinion, the good side of it. But then when you look at the actual energy usage, this is where I'm really getting concerned. Just as an comparison here, and this is based on just a very recent report from the European Energy Organization. This is that if you do 20 queries on Google, with that energy that you use for this, you can charge your smartphone. And now, guess how many queries you do on ChatGPT to charge your smartphone? This is 2.
2, wow.
So this means
times.
You need 10 times more energy for a ChatGPT kind of query.
Right, okay.
And this is just keeping exploding.
Yeah.
And, if you look at this and combined with the beginning also sort of we had the least snow this season or this winter, really makes me question whether this is the smartest way to use compute power as we go.
Sure, or we should probably be looking at sustainable energy sources for this type of technology. I think that's probably. I mean, it's. I know people criticize the Bitcoin network for this reason because it obviously uses a lot of energy. You don't really hear people questioning the AI innovation so much about it. I didn't know that what you just said, that it was 10x a Google search, but Yeah, but that will inevitably become more of a conversation, I'm sure. I just hope that companies like Microsoft, OpenAI, and Google just try to get a little bit more responsible with their energy consumption, because I think that needs to happen, doesn't it? Otherwise, you'll be going on summer holidays in March in the Austrian hills. You won't be skiing, Nobody wants that, do they? So yeah, no, I completely agree. So I wanted to ask about yourself and what's sort of on your radar right now. What's occupying your thoughts right now, Bernd, at Dynatrace? What are you working on? What sort of what product development are you doing right now? And where do you see Dynatrace going over the next couple of years in terms of the product and the marketplace you're in?
The biggest one is to actually get our data lakehouse that we call Grail out to the customers further. And this is the foundation actually also for growing the use cases that our customers can do with hypermodal AI on top of their data. And this data lakehouse, what this means is actually that enterprises have the challenge that one hand, they collect so much data, the data explosion is continuing. So think about that data collection doubles every other year of what we collect. So when we talk now exabytes, sort of, it's not so far away. We have the next magnitude around the corner. But what are companies doing with this? It's getting harder and harder to make sense from this, all this data that's being collected. And then you have cost. We talk about sustainability of keeping the data, because usually everyone says, oh, we collect everything, we store everything because we never know, we might need it at some point.
Yeah.
And the security guys for sure say, yes, I mean, we need to have the ability to do forensics also a year back and all these kind of questions. But this becomes really for enterprises a mess of many tools together, many data silos, and hard to make any sense out of this. And this is where actually growing the ability to leverage data lake house is massive, because this allows to consolidate several data silos, consolidate tools. Also, currently, companies use data lakes. Why? Because it's cheap to store raw data.
Yeah.
But the issue of a data lake is when you want to access data, then you need your data science team figure out how to import this, how to change it and store it in a data warehouse. And this can take weeks. If you have a security incident, you don't have the time for weeks to sort of access the data.
Yeah.
So, but also the flip side, storing everything in a data warehouse is too costly. Also, when you need to make data findable, you need to create so-called indices, and those take up even more space than the raw data itself if you try to make multiple dimensions findable.
Yeah.
So these are challenges enterprises really have, and this is where the data lakehouse concept is key, because allowing to actually deal with this massive amounts of data at cost, so very cost effectively.
Yeah.
And while at the same time be able to find the unknown immediately and retrieve any question that you have at any time instantaneously.
Yeah, sure.
Even if it's an exabyte. And this is, to me, sort of the most exciting driving forward, because this unlocks use cases for observability, security, as well as business. We also did queries with executive leaders. One of the key challenges is to have real-time visibility into your digital systems, how they relate to the business, whether it's product purchases or banking transactions or logistics things, it doesn't matter. That is awesome, and this drives really a big contextual analytics benefit to customers, coupled then with AI, making their life really easier.
Do you think the emergence of large language models in the context of business software and business data, like Microsoft Copilot, is obviously going to be probably the market leader initially in that world? Do you think this is going to be the stimulus for organizations to finally do something with endless data lakes of raw data? Do you know what I mean? Because these large language models won't work unless the data is prepared. Do you know what I mean? So do you think the emergence of LLMs will force companies to make better use of their data? Do you think it will be the stimulus for that, or do you think it won't really matter?
I think there will be attempts, but it will be just more complicated, because I strongly believe in order for have good outcome from AI, you need to start at the beginning of the quality of data that's coming in. And most attempt just to tack on, okay, you have already mess of data, put AI on top of it, and then it will become just messier. Sort of, it's almost like if you take a picture with a camera that has a very poor sensor, or you don't have your lens sharp,
Yeah.
no matter what
That's a
software
good
you
analogy,
use,
actually.
it will never get sort of, you don't get content back that was never there unless you fake it or make it up.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and I can see organizations doing that actually, but but yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. But that was just me being curious, and I think this is a fascinating topic, and I think this is a developing picture. But let's maybe take it back to you then, Bernd, just to wrap up. Okay, you're a busy chap. I'm assuming you do a lot of traveling with your role. Obviously, you've got a lot of responsibility. You've been on an amazing journey with Dynatrace. But how do you keep productive? What productivity advice could you give the listeners? And also, just to bolt a bit onto that, how do you achieve balance in your life so that you don't burn out and prioritize your mental well-being as well, given the amount of stress and pressure that comes with your job?
Yeah, it is a true challenge, and was just a couple of years ago where I had to reorganize myself strongly, and I figured out the model that works at least for me. I have on Monday, this is what I call a hands-on Monday, because I feel as a CTO, I have to get my hands on product, get dirty, see code, see prototypes, sort of be on it, sort of to have both feet on the ground.
Yeah.
And then Tuesday to Thursday is sort of meeting marathon, meeting customers, meeting internal with teams, kind of 15 meetings a day is sort of the norm. And then Friday is then my day of get sort of work done, sort of my work. This is when I have time for messaging,
doing podcasts.
Yeah, correct. Doing podcasts.
It's Friday today, exactly. By the way.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what it is. No, that's what it is. And this weekly structure really helps, because Friday is then the time for concentrated time, and this can obviously blur then into Saturdays. But I try to really take off then on the weekend at least a day. But then also some part of relaxation is then I do coding, for instance, also sort of to relax and stay in the tech at the same time, because that's still a fun part. And my team does not allow me to do productive code anymore.
You just do your own fun code, yeah?
So I do my fun code at home. Yeah.
AI will never stop true techies writing code, eh? But I love it. You're clearly a true techie, Bernd, because you called your routine a model, which I thought was brilliant. So yeah, spoken like a true computer scientist. That was really useful. And what about productivity? How do you stay productive? Any tools you use? Any other tips that you could give the listeners on that one?
Mostly have teams who are smarter than you around, and this is always teamwork, always keeping pushing,
delegation, yeah,
everyone, and delegation. Yeah, correct, and split out responsibilities. This is a constant one. To be honest, we have here at Barista in the office, and this is what I always try throughout the week, multiple times, sit there even for 2 hours at the Barista, 3 coffees, because meeting my employees is one of the most important items.
Oh, okay.
And
brilliant.
This is super productive time, actually, when you get things done there. And this is also, offices are no longer a place for working. In my opinion, the office has turned into a collaboration and event hub.
Socializing, yeah. I think, yeah, absolutely. So looking back over your career now, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to your 21-year-old self?
So really do what I did so far every day, figure out how has it been, reflect on yourself and figure out what's the next best step, and stick to it. Stay honest to yourself, stay honest to the world, and work this way forward. I don't have any other.
That is really really useful. I think I completely agree. I think I think it's you've obviously believed in an idea and developed an amazing product, and then you sold it to investors who helped you scale it, which is an incredible achievement. So I think it's Yeah, I think, and it completely rhymes with what you just said. So no, that's really useful. So I wanted to ask you finally to finish on this one, Bernd. We always ask the guests. I'm not sure if you're much of a reader, but if you're not, maybe you could suggest a piece of content like a documentary or something. But what person, book, story, anecdote have you been inspired by recently?
So in my entire career, also from when we were smaller teams, I think alone having an engineering team of 20 people, this was the first moment when I really struggled with sort of leading a team and dividing up responsibilities. Was the time when I got deeply into the 1 Minute Manager series.
Oh,
I had other piles of project management books that I tried to read, but I always came back to the 1 Minute Manager series because it's such a simple message.
Yeah.
And sort of the misconception that I see, many believe you need lots of methods. The reality is you need only very few methods, but the hard part is always living them properly. And this is, I felt, what the 1 Minute Manager does great, giving you basic advice in your life on how to drive things forward.
Yeah, no, it's the Blanchard and Johnson, I think, are the authors on it. I think it's a classic. I am aware of it. I've not read that book myself, but we will put that on the show notes. And certainly, that's really useful. Thank you so much. Bernd, thank you again for coming on. It's been a really interesting conversation. I think we've covered some valuable and entertaining topics, and it was great to get your thoughts on things. Where can people find you, Bernd? And what are you up to right now? Where can people engage with you?
Go to dynatrace.com. That's the easiest from that end. And other than that...
Are you active on LinkedIn or Twitter as well? Do you post much about the company and things?
No, I try to stay a bit away from
Stay in the background.
Too much on this media. Yeah, sort of. I take care mostly on the key conferences. So there are usually conferences in the fall. Then the major one in Las Vegas in February again.
You're doing keynotes there, yeah?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Those are the major events. I focus on those, but the rest,
sure.
I also need to find time to build product, and
absolutely.
That's why you have to balance.
Yeah, of course. Well, once again, I really appreciate your time, Bernd. I know you're a really busy guy, so thank you so much for coming on the Tech Leaders podcast.
Thank you very much, Gareth.
Wow, that was an incredible conversation. I really enjoyed that. Whilst these interviews often follow a similar pattern, it's during the moments when the conversation takes unexpected turns and ventures into tangents that the most captivating content seems to surface from the chaos rather than the order. But one aspect of the conversation that really fascinated me was Bernd's simple explanation of the distinctions between causal, predictive, and generative AI. His insight into how these various forms of AI complementing each other is crucial to the development of exceptional AI-driven products, autonomous driving systems being a case in point. There's so much more we could have delved into, but this aspect really stood out for me. There's so much more that I could have drawn attention to, but this aspect really stood out for me as being quite profound. Bernd is unmistakably someone deeply immersed in the world of computer science. His characterization of his work-life balance as a model illustrates his dedication to the field and underscores his role as a driving force behind the creation of the exceptional products that Dynatrace have produced. I thoroughly enjoyed this discussion. Thank you so much for tuning in, and please don't forget to subscribe. It really helps us. We've got lots of great content to come with some of the world's best tech leaders. Hope to see you soon. This episode was brought to you by Be Digital. Be Digital support leadership teams to optimize cost and get more out of technology investments. Be Digital and the team have unrivaled expertise with technology, license management, and data remediation, and are therefore perfectly positioned to help prepare organizations for AI technology capability. And on the last point, Be Digital have just developed a cutting-edge AI readiness assessment, which provides tech leaders with a platform they need to make well-informed decisions about AI adoption strategy in 2024 and beyond. Go to Be Digital UK to find out more and get in touch.